Hi folks, Dan Palumbo here again. We're going to talk today about the oxygen system and the functional checks that are needed before we depart. This is our oxygen system on the G4. On the left hand side is the crew oxygen system. Notice the switch is off. It's a green switch in the bottom position. And on the right side is the passenger oxygen system. We need a minimum of 1800 psi, and if you take a good look, the crew is not in good shape. Looks like about 1200 psi. So we're going to need servicing before we depart. Should be about 1800 psi. The passenger system is at 1800, and that looks good. So that's the system, that's the control panel there. Here is our oxygen mask. We have the Aeros 300 mask in our airplane here. And over on the right hand side, if you can see it, is the passenger oxygen control panel. Notice it's off. To turn the system on, you go to the left-hand side, flip this switch in the on position on both, and let the system pressurize. Make sure it's pressurized before you go to the right-hand side and turn on the oxygen passenger control panel. If you don't have it pressurized and you move that switch from off to auto, those masks could drop. You want to avoid that. Another thing you want to avoid is moving this knob over to the right, which is in the manual position. You don't want to do that. You move it to the auto position, make sure that you go directly from off to auto and watch what you're doing. Let's do that. We'll move the switch, see the knob, from here to here. And thank goodness the masks did not drop. While we're over here on the right-hand side, let's talk a little more about the passenger oxygen control panel. Now, what would it look like if you had to deliberately drop the oxygen masks in the back for the passengers during an emergency? Well, you would take the knob and move it from the auto position all the way to the right to the manual position. And when you do that, a green passenger oxygen light would illuminate, and you would also see cabin oxygen on a CAS message. Now, you never want to do this as a test. This is just something that I'm showing you to show you what it would look like if you had to deliberately drop the oxygen masks in the back for the passengers. All right? Never do that. And like I said, this switch, this knob, should never be moved to the right. Only to the left, to the auto position, and only when you have pressure. Let's do the oxygen functional check. Let's get into the QRH, the G4 QRH. We'll hit functional checks. We'll go to oxygen crew mask regulator pre-flight test. First thing we do is read the note. This procedure allows the flight crew the ability to perform a complete pre-flight check without having to remove the mask regulator from the stowage compartment. Number 1, select the crew oxygen toggle valve, switch to on. All right, let's do that. There it is. We did this earlier. There's the crew on the left, the passenger on the right. Switch it on. Done. Number 2, check the crew oxygen system supply. We did that, and as noted before, the crew only has 1200 psi. We need to get it serviced. It should be 1800 on temperature. But clearly, this is a little too low, so it needs to be serviced before we depart. Number 3. On the crew mask regulator storage compartment, that's this right here, perform the following based upon the type of crew mask regulator that's installed. We happen to have the Aeros MXP 300. So 3B, for the Aeros MXP 300, depress the press to test and reset control lever on the left-hand door in the direction of the arrow. That's this right here. See where it says press to test and reset? There's the arrow, it's a little faded. We want to push forward on this, and when we do, we want to observe that the flow indicator, all right, that's the blinker right there, momentarily displays a yellow cross and then returns to black. This indicates the regulator is leak tight. If the blinker continuously displays a yellow cross, a leak in the system should be assumed and investigated. So let's do that. We're going to press this forward. We want to see a little yellow plus sign momentarily, and then it should go away. And it does. Releasing. Number 6, While holding the MXP 300 press to test and reset control lever, depress and hold the red press to test button on the mask regulator for 1 second while performing steps A and B. 6A. Observe that the blinker momentarily displays a yellow cross, then returns to black. This indicates the regulator demand mechanism is working properly. B. While holding the MXP 300 press to test and reset control lever and the red press to test button, that's right under here, right there. There's a little button, you're going to press that. The microphone integrity must be checked by listening for the oxygen flow noise through the communication set. Well, I already have set on the ICS the speaker, I pressed mask, and I pressed the hot mic so that you can hear the oxygen flow. So let's do that. We're going to press this forward. We hear it. Now we're going to hold this down and press this button here and see if we get the same thing. And we do. Number 7, release the press to test button on the mask regulator. Number 8, release the MXP 300 press to test and reset control lever. Observe that the oxygen flow ceases. Downstream pressure will be vented to the ambient. This is the ICS panel, otherwise known as the Baker box. When you're doing step 6B, the microphone integrity check, you want to make sure that you have the speaker selected, mask on. Once you have those on, you'll be able to do the check and hear the oxygen flow through the speaker system. Another check you should do is the constant flow emergency check. And we checked it earlier when we had it in the storage compartment here. We just pressed this button here. Well, this is also a knob. You can see emergency. Let me give you a little better look at it. You can see where it says emergency. It's off now, but it's on if you move it clockwise to that dot there, that position there. So let's do that. We're going to move it to the right. It's on. You can hear the oxygen flow, and you can see the yellow cross. The oxygen is flowing. When you're done with that check, turn it back to the left, counterclockwise, turn it off, and you don't hear the oxygen flow anymore, and the yellow plus sign goes away. How do we remove the mask from the storage compartment? We do that by grasping the regulator with 3 fingers, the middle, the ring, and the small, while keeping the thumb and the forefinger open and withdrawing the mask. So it kind of looks like this. Straight up. When the mask regulator is removed from the storage compartment, the open doors activate a shutoff valve, making oxygen available to the mask. In order to prevent inflating the mask harness before it's withdrawn from the storage compartment, the inflation valve, the little red ears right here, is not depressed until after the mask is out of the storage compartment. The inflation valve can then be depressed with the thumb and the forefinger, inflating the harness, just like this. Releasing the inflation valve vents the harness to ambient, allowing the elastic in the harness to create a snug fit over the nose and the mouth. I'll show you how it's done. How do we put the mask on? They're simple. You press the red ears, inflate the mask, bring it up over your head like this. All right, the mask harness is out of its storage compartment. So let's take a look at this thing. What do we have on here? What is all of that stuff? Each mask regulator has an inflating harness. It's this thing here. Inflation valve, which is the red ears that you push in together to inflate and release to deflate. You got the normal to 100 control lever. That's right here. You got the press to test emergency control knob. We talked about that earlier. That's right here. The microphone, which is right in here. A hose with a quick disconnect fitting, and a communication harness, which is right here. There's a line for communications. The N to 100 control lever, that's this thing right here. N standing for normal. The normal to 100% control lever provides diluted oxygen regulated by altitude and demand while in the normal position. As cabin altitude increases, an aneroid capsule inside the mask regulator expands to decrease the ambient airflow the wearer breathes. This action increases the oxygen to the ambient air ratio until the cabin altitude reaches 35,000 feet. At this cabin altitude, the aneroid capsule has completely shut off the ambient airflow, and the wearer is now breathing 100% oxygen. 100% oxygen flow is also supplied by the N to 100 control lever is depressed to the 100% position. Let's do that. I'm going to push this in. Now it's at 100%. The press to test emergency control knob has 3 functions. That's this thing right here. When momentarily depressed, this button, we did that before, it verifies the regulator valve will supply oxygen under constant pressure. In the normal position, when the knob is on the top white dot there, it allows the regulator's aneroid capsule to regulate positive pressure to assist breathing at cabin altitudes between 36,000 feet and 45,000 feet. In the emergency position, when you move this knob from the top white dot to the bottom white dot, 100% oxygen is supplied at a positive pressure on demand mode to assist in breathing. Okay, let's test that emergency control knob. Let's turn it from the top white dot to the bottom white dot. There it is, a constant flow. Okay, here's the hardest part. Putting this harness back into its compartment. So how do we do that? Well, it takes a little bit of patience and a whole lot of practice, but it can be done. Let's see if we can pull this off. All right, first thing you want to do is fold up. Oh, you didn't want to do that. But you want to fold up the harness and put it inside the mask as best you can. The whole thing kind of looks a little like this. Then you want to take the oxygen hose and shove it down inside that compartment. Turn the mask down. Try not to do what I just did. Turn the mask down, push it through, and let it kind of sit right in there. Close the left one first, and then the right one, and then to make sure that it's in there properly, test it. All right, might take a couple of times. There it is. Test it another time. Just press it a couple times. Good. So it works, and we have an easy way to test it. Simple and easy. Okay. Maybe not easy. And that's it.